Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government to sanction employers over indecent working conditions. Defense headquarters says troops killed 52 terrorists, arrested ISWAP leader in Bauchi. Plus, UN top court orders Venezuela to refrain from action in Guyana dispute. Details of these stories and more in a moment. We begin the news tonight from the national scene, where the federal government says it will sanction employers over indecent working conditions that contravene local and international labor laws. Minister of Labor and Employment Simon Lalong said this during the inauguration of the Decent Work Country Program DWCP 3 2023 to 2027 today in Abuja. The DWCP was inaugurated to promote jobs, guarantee rights at work, extend social protection, and promote social dialogue. The program was organized by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment in collaboration with the International Labour Organization (ILO). Lalong said decent work deficits had continued to abound in the economy as informal employment has become the norm, while well-paying jobs that offer social protection benefits are the exception. According to him, workers in the informal economy are exposed to poor working conditions, low pay, long work hours, and low unionism rate, and unsafe working environments. Meanwhile, the federal government has set up a committee to investigate programs carried out by the National Directorate of Employment (NDE). Speaking at the inauguration of the committee, the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Nkiruka Onyejocha, stated that the committee was tasked with the responsibility of investigating the current programs of NDE between January till date to meet with President Bola Tinubu's expectation for job creation. In a statement by her special advisor media, Emame Gabriel, the minister explained that any employment program that does not change the status of the employee economically was not employment. According to her, an employee is supposed to add value and have a target. She said the National Directorate of Employment (NDE) is a federal government agency that is responsible for the implementation of employment programs and policies, and is also charged with the responsibility to provide a variety of services to job seekers, including vocational training, job placement, and entrepreneurship development. In the meantime, the federal government has said that it had raised 585 million naira towards the settlement of fines for inmates in a bid to decongest correctional centers across the country. The Minister of Interior, Dr. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, represented by an assistant director in the ministry, Dr. Anayo Romanus Nzekwe, disclosed this on Thursday in Kano during the release of 150 inmates whose fines were settled by the federal government. The minister said the 150 inmates were among the 4,068 inmates nationwide that the government intended to free, in line with President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. He explained that all inmates in the custodial centers who have fines and compensation not exceeding 1 million naira were qualified to benefit from the gesture. Elsewhere, the federal government has said that a new minimum wage administration would come into effect on April 1, 2024. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, who disclosed this in an interview in Abuja, said the current 30,000 naira minimum wage would expire at the end of March 2024. Recall that following the removal of the fuel subsidy by President Bola Tinubu on May 29, 2023, the federal government had agreed to pay 35,000 naira each to each of its workers to cushion the effects of the subsidy removal. But the organized labor insisted that the 35,000 naira wage award was a temporary measure, adding that the minimum wage should be reviewed in 2024. To the second citizen of Nigeria now, Vice President Kashim Shettima, who has said that the private sector is an important part of the foundation that holds the Nigerian government together. Shettima made this known at the inauguration of projects in Anambra State. The Vice President reiterated President Bola Tinubu's commitment to cultivating an environment conducive to enterprise and innovation. He said it explains why the President's vision for Nigeria is based on 8 priority areas, including poverty eradication, economic growth, job creation, and equitable access to capital. In another development, the First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, has charged community leaders to join hands to enforce the fight against HIV/AIDS in order to eradicate it from the African continent. This is contained in a statement by the Senior Special Advisor to the First Lady and Media, Bushola Kokoi, today in Zimbabwe. Tinubu gave the advice during the commemoration of the 2023 World AIDS Day with the theme, "Let Communities Lead." The First Lady said the epidemic can only be eradicated with the active involvement of leaders of various communities leading in the war against it. Meanwhile, the event was organized by the First Lady of Zimbabwe, Dr. Auxilia Mnangagwa, ahead of the 22nd edition of the International Conference on AIDS and STI in Africa. And from the Red Chamber, the Senate has commenced debate on the 2024 budget a day after President Bola Tinubu presented the budget of 27.5 trillion naira to a joint session of the National Assembly. Leading the debate on the general principles of the 2024 appropriation bill during plenary, the Senate leader Opeyemi Bamidele announced that the bill is deemed to have been read for the first time by the presentation before the joint session of the National Assembly, hence the commencement of the general debate. He urged the lawmakers to approve the second reading of the 2024 appropriation bill for consideration by the Appropriation Committee and subcommittees. Opeyemi said the budget was designed to prioritize electricity challenges, procurement of vaccines, construction of major roads across the country, and construction of railway projects, adding that the parameters and fiscal assumptions of the proposed budget would develop economic activities of the country and transform living conditions of Nigerians. Supporting the motion, Senator representing Delta South Joel Thomas said when the budget is passed, it would facilitate a renewed hope for Nigerians. Meanwhile, the Senate has asked the federal government to withhold statutory allocations to any local government councils not democratically elected. The upper chamber unanimously resolved that this move would deter the dictatorial tendencies of any state governor. This resolution comes against the backdrop of a motion moved by Senator Abba Moro on the urgent need to halt the erosion of democracy vis-a-vis the dissolution of elected councils in Benue State. The lawmakers argued that the placement of caretaker committees to replace elected councils is an aberration, undemocratic, and a breach of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Senator Victor Omer, representing Anambra Senatorial District, who seconded the motion, lamented that the issue has continued to undermine the local government system in Nigeria. The Senate therefore condemned the arbitrary dissolution of democratically elected local government councils in Benue and other states of the Federation. In the meantime, the Senate has summoned the Minister of Mines and Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, to appear before its Committee on Solid Minerals next week, Wednesday. He is expected to brief the committee on the federal government's work plan to develop the sector and block illegal mining. The panel berated Al-Laki for allegedly disregarding all invitations so far sent to him since he was appointed by the president. The committee resolved during its meeting and expressed dissatisfaction over the failure of the minister to appear before it. The panel said Al-Laki was fond of giving excuses while expressing concerns that the minister had abandoned his primary duties of bringing the mining sector to international repute. It stressed that Al-Laki was relatively inexperienced in the sector and had further created a cloudy future for the yet-to-be-explored wealth. The committee therefore threatened to give zero allocation to the ministry in the 2024 fiscal year if the minister failed to amend his ways to start responding to invitations of the committee. Now from the Green Chamber, where the 2024 appropriation bill has scaled second reading in the House of Representatives after 2 days of debate. Some lawmakers were concerned about the plan of the government to generate revenue from heavy tax, fearing that it would greatly affect importers. Others say the proposed 1.7 million barrels per day of crude production is unrealistic. The committees will now have 2 weeks to conclude the budget defense process. Recall that President Bola Tinubu presented the 2024 budget proposal before the lawmakers on Wednesday. The president, who addressed a joint session of the National Assembly in Abuja, charged both arms of the legislative arm to work assiduously and conclude with reasonable dispatch their deliberations on the 2024 budget estimates of 27.5 trillion naira. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has accused the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA) of hiding billions of internally generated revenue (IGR) and depriving the nation of its financial responsibility. The House of Reps Committee on Finance threatened to remove the managing director and all the top officials from the authority to allow for more transparent leaders. Representative James Falaki of APC Lagos said this at the resumed interactive session with revenue-generating agencies in Abuja today. He said the NCAA was hiding revenue generated, which was why it refused to give the committee the requested data on the number of passengers that flew airlines. He, however, promised that the committee would get the money, no matter how hard the NCAA tried to hide it. A separate development now. The Controller General of Nigeria Immigration Service (NIS), Carolina Depoju, has said that the service would open more passport service points to meet the needs of Nigerians in the diaspora. Depoju said in an interview with Newsman today in Abuja that efforts were on to ease passport processing in the country. The Controller General noted that the service had opened 3 additional passport processing centers in Nigeria located at Ikorodu, Ofa, and Ile-Oluji to ease demands on passport centers in Lagos, Kwara, and Ondo states. She also appealed to those in the diaspora whose passports were tied to their stay and status abroad, always to be conscious of the need to renew their passports on time. On security matters, the Defense Headquarters DHQ says troops of the Nigerian military and operatives of Department of State Services DSS have killed 52 terrorists and arrested the leader of the Islamic State West Africa province ISWAP in a Bauchi state. The Defense Headquarters explained that the ISWAP leader was arrested during a sting operation at Tarum, a village outside Bauchi metropolis. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, disclosed this in a statement today. Although the DHQ did not reveal the name, it said the arrested ISWAP leader was in charge of North Central and Northwest zones. In another development, helicopter owned by the Nigerian Air Force (NAF) has crashed in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. The NAF spokesman Edward Gapquet confirmed the development in a statement. He said that the helicopter with the number NAF MI-35P crashed at exactly 7:45 a.m. shortly after it took off for an operation against economic saboteurs in River State. Gapquet further stated that everyone on board survived and sustained minor injuries, adding that they are being attended to at NAV Medical Center, Port Harcourt. Reports say the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, was on his way to Port Harcourt to assess the situation and give further directives. The financial crime, where the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) has withdrawn the money laundering charge filed against the former Attorney General of Lagos State, Olasupo Shashore. Shashore was arraigned alongside his company Middlesex Investments Limited on a 14-count charge of money laundering before Justice Inyang Court in November 2022. At the day's proceedings, counsel for the EFCC Balasanga told the judge that the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, has directed the anti-graft agency via a letter to withdraw the charge. Meanwhile, counsel to Shashore, Olawale Akoni, did not oppose the application. Justice Ekwo subsequently granted the application and discharged the defendants. Away from that, now Governor Godwin Obaseki says the People's Democratic Party (PDP) will determine his deputy Philip Chwaibu's fate regarding the party's ticket and the Edo State governorship election in September 2024. Obaseki stated this after a closed-door meeting with his Bauchi counterpart Bala Mohammed and the former Akwa Ibom State Governor Udom Emmanuel. Recall that Chwaibu declared his interest for the 2024 governorship election in Edo State on Monday. The Edo governor explained that they were in Bauchi to discuss party politics and national issues. On the removal of fuel subsidy leading to a spike in the cost of living, Governor Obaseki urged Nigeria's leaders to be solution providers. Still to come in the news. IMF mulls debt for climate swap deal for Nigeria. Well, not this. Stay with us.
For brilliant broadcasts and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world, watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon. Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or products visible on a television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more inquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Many thanks for staying tuned. Moving on now to Africa, where Guinea-Bissau's army today announced that it was holding the leader of the security forces unit involved in overnight clashes in the capital and had the situation under control. Recall that gunfire was heard for part of the night and early on today in Bissau in exchanges between members of the National Guard and Presidential Guard Special Forces. Reports say the firing came after National Guard soldiers freed two members of the government who had been questioned by police on Thursday. Speaking with newsmen, Military Chief of Staff spokesman Captain Jogito Biagwe said the situation is completely under control. Still in Africa, more than 30 people were feared trapped today in a mine collapse in Zambian region known for illegal open cast digging for copper. The Mines Ministry made no comment, saying it would make an inspection first at the site in the Chingola region, about 400 kilometers north of the capital, Lusaka. Zambia is one of the world's largest copper producers, and Chingola is in the country's copper belt region. Meanwhile, the region has one of the world's largest open cast copper mines, and some of the waste hills 100 meters high. In the meantime, the government in Benin has introduced two new military medals as the army battles a growing threat from Islamist militant groups. It said one of the medals, the Combatant's Cross, was for soldiers killed or wounded in combat. Benin had not previously faced an external security threat, but over the last 3 years there have been several incursions from Burkina Faso where the violence has displaced nearly 2 million people. Reports say earlier this year, the military in Benin launched a recruitment drive for 5,000 additional troops to help reinforce the border. In the meantime, Ethiopian Airline has said passengers boarding any of its flights from Nigeria would not be allowed to bring Ghana Must-Go bags. Ghana Must-Go bags are popular sack-like load carriers in Nigeria that come in different sizes and colors and are preferred by many travelers due to their durability and affordability. According to a letter seen by newsmen but dated November 24, 2023 and addressed to the regional manager of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, the ban took effect from November 25, 2023. Elsewhere, Cameroon's Health Minister Dr. Manouda Malachi has urged the population to trust the government's health policy amid growing skepticism over the malaria vaccines which arrived the country 9 days ago. In a statement, Malachi detailed the benefits of the RTS&S vaccine in the fight against malaria, praising the outcome of the testing phase in Kenya, Ghana, and Malawi. The health minister said based on the efficacy of the results obtained, the introduction of the vaccine will make it possible to cover the entire childhood and, depending on the coverage rate, avoid about 2,000 deaths among children under 5 years of age every year. According to the World Health Organization, Cameroon records 6 million malaria cases with 4,000 deaths in health facilities every year. Still in Africa now, the Somali authorities say more than 1 million people have now been forced to abandon their homes in the country due to floods caused by the El Nino weather phenomenon. This comes as world leaders gather in Dubai to discuss the climate crisis at the COP28 summit. At least 270 people are reported to have died in Somalia, Kenya, and southern Ethiopia as the continental region, which is just coming out of prolonged drought, braces for further torrential rains. According to reports, in Somalia alone, more than 100 people have died in flash floods. On a foreign scene, United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed has announced a $30 billion climate fund that aims to attract $250 billion of investment by the end of the decade. He made his announcement as he opened the summit of heads of state at the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28, in Dubai. A statement by the COP28 presidency said the fund, dubbed Altera, will allocate $25 billion to climate strategies and $5 billion to incentivize investment flows into the global south. Meanwhile, BlackRock Chief Executive Larry Fink said the fund could be transformative. In a related development, French President Emmanuel Macron addressed the COP28 summit today as world leaders gathered in Dubai for the second day of UN climate talks. Meanwhile, attendees are under pressure to step up efforts to limit global warming, even as the Israel-Hamas conflict casts a shadow over the agenda. Moving on now, with the commencement of action in the Gaza Strip today, Israel's army declared new safe zones for Palestinian residents. The military issued an interactive map in Arabic featuring evacuation zones in preparation for the next phase of the war. Reports say the strip is divided into zones so that residents can orient themselves, understand the instructions, and move to safety from specific locations if necessary. Hours earlier, the army started military operations against Hamas after a week-long ceasefire was not restored for the third time. In the meantime, a spokesperson for the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health, Dr. Ashraf al-Qudra, has said that 14 people have been killed and dozens injured by Israel's strikes in Gaza today. Al-Qudra said the majority of those killed were women and children. A statement from the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Interior said Israeli strikes had resumed across Gaza earlier today after a temporary truce between the militant group and Israel ended. In a related development, Iranian delegates walked out of United Nations UN climate talks in the United Arab Emirates today in protest over the presence of Israeli representatives. According to Energy Minister Ali Akbar Mehrabian, who headed the Iranian delegation, the Iranian side considered Israel's presence at COP28 as contrary to the goals and guidelines of the conference, and in protest it left the conference venue. In a telephone conversation on Thursday, Iranian Foreign Minister and his Emirati counterpart Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan talked about the latest developments in Gaza following the second extension of a ceasefire after weeks of deadly Israeli strikes on Palestinians. Meanwhile, Iran has blamed Israel and the United States for a resumption of fighting in the Gaza Strip today. Deadly fighting commenced in Gaza today immediately after the expiration of a 7-day truce between Israel and Iran-backed Hamas militants. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that defenses must be quickly beefed up across the front line after meeting commanders in some of the main pressure points in the south and east. He said the Ukraine forces must speed up the building of structures in all major sectors where reinforcement is needed. According to him, Russian forces are trying to encircle the eastern town of Avdiivka and are targeting the southern regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia. Elsewhere, El Salvador's Congress has granted President Nayib Bukele leave for 6 months to allow him to campaign for re-election. Reports say the leave comes despite a constitutional prohibition and approved the president's selection of his private secretary to be the country's interim leader. Vice President Felix Ulloa was also granted leave to campaign again as Bukele's running mate. According to reports, 67 lawmakers voted in favor to 12 against to approve Bukele's request for leave. And while Bukele will seek a second 5-year term for the New Ideas Party in the February 4 national elections. So on the foreign scene, the UN's top court has ordered Venezuela not to take any action to upset the status quo with Guyana 2 days before a potentially explosive referendum over disputed oil-rich territory. The court also ordered both parties to refrain from any action which might aggravate or extend the dispute before the court or make it more difficult to resolve. Now, Venezuela has for decades laid claim to the Essequibo region, which is governed by Guyana and makes up more than two-thirds of its territory, home to 125,000 of its 800,000 citizens. Meanwhile, Caracas plans a referendum on December 3, calling into question an 1899 decision by an arbitration tribunal that fixed the border with Guyana, a former colony of both Britain and the Netherlands. In the meantime, Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court, has died at the age of 93. A statement by the U.S. Supreme Court said she died today in Phoenix, Arizona, due to complications related to dementia and a respiratory illness. Recall that Justice O'Connor was appointed to America's highest court by former U.S. President Ronald Reagan in 1981 and served as justice for more than 24 years until her retirement in 2006. Elsewhere, the Philippines has said that it was establishing a Coast Guard station on the largest island it holds in the disputed South China Sea to improve monitoring of Chinese vessels, asserting Beijing's claims to the waters today. National Security Advisor Eduardo Ano made the announcement during a visit to the Philippine-held T2 Island, which is part of the hotly contested Spratly Islands. Ano said the Coast Guard station would be equipped with advanced systems including radar, satellite communication, coastal cameras and vessel traffic management. Meanwhile, the station has been built and is expected to be operational early next year. And now it's time for the latest business and stock market stories. Here is Blessing Dixon.
Thank you, Xavier Robert. Good evening. It's Business News, and my name is Blessing Dixon. In the news, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has said it is considering setting up a debt to climate swap deal to help indebted countries cut their debt in return for protecting the ecosystem. Nigeria's rising foreign debt profile stood at $43.2 billion in the second quarter of June 2023. The managing director of IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, disclosed this during an interview with journalists at COP28, stating that the international institution is yet to have a clear mechanism on how the debt for climate swap deal will operate. According to her, the decarbonization drive is difficult for countries with high level of indebtedness. Meanwhile, African countries, including Nigeria, are pushing for debt relief and can tap from the proposed initiative to scale up additional climate funding for projecting their climate actions when the deal finally comes on board. In Nigeria, the African Development Bank and FSDH have signed a new $20 million trade finance facility to support small and medium enterprises, SMEs, in Nigeria. The Director General, Nigeria Country Department, Mr. Lamin Barrow, said this during the signing ceremony in Lagos. Barrow emphasized the pivotal role of trade in economic development, likening trade financing to its lubricant, while explaining that the recently signed $20 million facility includes a $15 million trade finance line of credit dedicated to assisting eligible SMEs and corporations engaged in international trade value chains. Additionally, it incorporates a $5 million transaction guarantee aimed at strengthening FSDH's correspondent banking relationships. Away from that, The Stanbic IBTC Bank Nigeria Purchases Managers Index fell to 48 in November 2023 from 49.1 in October, marking the second straight month of contraction. New businesses experienced a significant decline, the most pronounced since the cash crisis earlier this year, as both output and new orders dropped further. Activity decreased sharply for wholesale and retail companies, while agriculture was the only sector that posted an increase in output. On a positive note, employment grew for the 7th consecutive month. On prices, purchase price inflation accelerated to near 2-year high on the back of exchange rate weakness and high cost for fuel and materials. Lastly, business confidence fell to its weakest since July's record low due to concerns about the impact of inflationary pressures on demand. It's time for the Nigerian stock market report. Today is the first trading day of the month and the last trading day of the week. A total of 361.11 million shares in 5,640 deals corresponding to a market value of 10.22 billion naira were traded. Compared with the previous trading day, today's data shows a 33% decline in volume, a 13% decline in deals. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 39.1 trillion naira. 190 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 38 gainers and 27 losers. Ikeja Hotel led the gainers with a 10% share price appreciation, closing at 4 naira and 62 kobo per share. On the losing side, Sunu Assurances Nigeria came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 10% at 1 naira 26 kobo per share. Universal Insurance Company recorded the highest volume of 44.1 million traded shares. This is all in business news.
Many thanks. Blessings. Still to come in the news. NFF extends 2024 Federation Cup registration. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying tuned. Now in health, the federal government and its development partners have said that the role of the private sector is crucial in improving funding for family planning and women's access to services across the country. The stakeholders said Nigeria needs to think about leveraging technology through the private sector to bridge the $29 million procurement funding gap for family planning commodities. Speaking during a high-level private sector forum on family planning in Lagos, organized by the United Nations Population Fund, the stakeholders expressed worry that maternal mortality has become a major public health challenge in Nigeria. They noted that making family planning services available to women and girls will not only curb maternal deaths in Nigeria, but will also promote economic empowerment and growth. Meanwhile, as the world marks World AIDS Day today with the theme "Let Communities Lead," stakeholders in Akwa Ibom have called for the inclusion of communities in order to eradicate AIDS in the state. Speaking with Spectrum Television, they highlighted the important role of communities and their leadership in the fight against HIV and AIDS, as well as advocated that everyone should know their status. A correspondent, Blessing Dixon, completes this report.
In 2021, 1.9 million people were living with HIV and about 51,000 people died AIDS-related deaths. The world marks World AIDS Day today with the theme "Let Communities Lead," emphasizing the essential role of communities in the HIV response. Stakeholders are calling for action because everyone must be involved in the fight against AIDS.
Yeah, World AIDS Day, it's a global day for celebration that has been recognized since 1988 by the World Health Organization. It's a day where we come to remember all that has been done with the work as regards HIV and AIDS. The theme for this year, 2023, the global theme is Let Communities Lead. And Nigeria has domesticated that theme to be community leadership to end AIDS by 2030. So in Akwa Ibom, the last official number we have put the prevalence at 5.5. That was in 2018. And I can tell you without any doubt that a lot of work has been done. As at that time in 2018, we had less than 50,000 people on treatment. But now we have over 100,000 people on treatment here in Akwa Ibom. And we're having babies born negative to mothers who are positive. We're doing a lot of work in the communities, identifying community birth centers, working with them to be able to prevent the mother-to-child transmission. So a lot of work is happening out there, and I believe that with the next survey, we will see, a significant decline in the prevalence of HIV here in Akwa Ibom. I think it starts with first everybody having the consciousness and the awareness that AIDS is real. HIV doesn't have any cure, and all of us should be interested in knowing our HIV status. For those who are negative, they need to remain negative. Multiple prevention methods, using condoms consistently and correctly. We even have drugs, pre-exposure prophylaxis drugs you can take before you have that risk, so we have drugs. Staying negative, staying healthy in terms of your behavior, your risk. So it's very important that for those who are negative, they stay negative. And for those who test and know their status and they are HIV positive and living with the virus, it's important for you to have treatment. With treatment, you can actually lead a normal life. With treatment, you can get up to a point where you cannot even transmit the virus, where we talk you equal to you. Undetectable is equal to untransmissible.
What is this day all about?
So this day is just an international day that we commemorate people that are living with HIV and also make an awareness so that more people that are in the communities can actually get tested. And the theme for this World AIDS Day is Let Community Lead. So the idea is that in our different communities, we should actually spread awareness that people living with HIV, that everybody should know their HIV status. And if you are positive, you should actually be placed on treatment. And the treatment is free. Just go to the community, go to the facilities and get tested and treated.
Know your status, abstain, be faithful to your partner, and use condoms. In Uyo, Blessing Dixon, Spectrum Television News.
Let's head over now to Utaba David for latest sports stories.
Hello, good evening and welcome. In sports, the Nigerian Football Federation, NFF, has extended the registration process for the 2024 Federation Cup by 2 weeks. In a circular to all Football Association secretaries dated 30th November 2023 by Ruth David, that's the acting director of the competition, it indicates that late registration will attract a penalty. The Federation, however, did not indicate the date for the commencement of the state preliminaries and finals of the oldest football competition in the country. Also, the football body pegged the registration fee at 150,000 naira for men's team and 100,000 naira for the women's team, while late registration will attract 200,000 naira and 120,000 naira for men and women team respectively. The competition is a single elimination knockout tournament featuring 74 teams from the 36 states and 1 team from the FCT, after all clubs have qualified from their respective states. Moving on, Arsenal are increasingly hopeful of agreeing a new contract with Ben White after opening talks with the defender. The 26-year-old deal still has 2.5 years left to run, but Arsenal have moved to secure his services for the long term after establishing himself as a key part of Mikel Arteta's side. Ben White joined Arsenal from Brighton and Hove Albion for €50 million in the summer of 2021 and has made 103 appearances for the club side. Primarily at right back, Arsenal are also in talks with Takehiro Tomiyasu over a contract extension, with the Japan international's present deal running until 2025, although the club have an option to extend by a further 12 months. Finally, Everton have filed an appeal against their 10-point deduction by the English Premier League. The Merseyside club were docked 10 points with immediate effect last month after being found to have breached profitability and sustainability rules relating to losses. Everton Football Club have today lost the chair of the Premier League's judicial panel its appeal of the decision by Premier League Commission to impose a 10-point deduction on the club. Earlier this month, the Premier League said Everton admitted that they had breached profitability and sustainability rules during a hearing. The resultant sanction was the biggest of its kind since the creation of the English Premier League. The deduction, which saw Everton drop from 14th in the standings into the relegation zone with 4 points, was labelled wholly disproportionate and unjust by the club side. Last week, Everton fan, the 1878 flew a banner that read the Premier League corrupt over the Etihad Stadium during Manchester City's 1-1 draw with Liverpool. And that's all we have for you on sports this evening. I am Utobe David.
Thanks, Utobe. On entertainment news, Taylor Swift's publicist has hit out at rumors that the pop star secretly married ex-partner Joe Allen. Tree Payne accused anonymous celebrity gossip account Dozmoy of causing pain and trauma after it made the claims. Recall that in an Instagram story, Dozmoy said the cruel summer hitmaker carried Joe in 2020 or 2021 in a non-legal ceremony. Still on entertainment news, Nigerian singer Dapo Oyebanjo, popularly known as D'banj, has been cleared of rape and power fraud allegations by the Nigeria Police Force and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. In separate documents obtained by Newsman today, the police and the anti-graft agency gave the artist a clean slate in separate clearance reports upon completion of investigations. In an affidavit deposed by Tohib Lawal of Abuja-based law firm Law Corridor before the District Court of Abuja, wherein the reports of the Nigeria Police Force investigation and clearance from the ICPC were marked Exhibits A and B, the legal practitioner averred that the police and the ICPC cleared the singer of rape and fraud allegations. It will be recalled that in 2020, the singer was accused of rape, and the Inspector General of Police ordered an investigation into the allegation. Meanwhile, famous Nigerian Afrobeat singer Davido's latest song, Timeless, has been ranked as the most streamed album in sub-Saharan Africa. The Spotify Rap 2023 is the annual data-led review of how people listen to music and podcasts on the platform. Recall that the singer's album, Timeless, was recently nominated for Best Global Album at the 2024 Grammy nominations. And lastly, on entertainment tonight, veteran singer and songwriter and former member of the defunct Plantation Boys, Chibuzoji, popularly known as Face, has revealed that he has never drank alcohol, smoked cigarettes, or engaged in illicit substance abuse. The 46-year-old said a healthy lifestyle was responsible for the longevity of his singing voice and physical well-being generally. Speaking in a recent interview, Faye said he does not do anything special apart from healthy health choices to maintain his voice. He also said that he drinks a lot of water to stay healthy. Meanwhile, the Kolomental crooner also stated in the interview that artists no longer care about good lyrics because the fans just want to dance. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You've been watching Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert. Good night and have a great weekend.